fáciles también. El cubano Stevenson buscando la manera de meter su derecha recta, pero encima está el soviético. No lo permite. La derecha arriba. El cubano. El soviético Abashan. Y no lo deja continuar. No deja continuar el soviético. Lo ve en malas condiciones. Victoria para Stevenson.
When Cesar punches, he gets this look. It's part focus, part play, part showmanship, part meditation. In the 2 weeks I spent with him, he convinces me that he's the greatest 7-year-old fighter in all of Cuba.
¿Y qué pasó?
Before Cesar was even born, I first visited Cuba. Fellow travellers kept warning me to get there before Fidel Castro died, claiming that when he did, Cuba would inevitably become just another Starbucks statistic. On my final morning of that trip in 2003, to my amazement, I'd woken up and heard Fidel's voice booming through the streets. Half asleep, I rushed outside and jumped into a taxi, hoping to get a glimpse of the enigma who had made time stand still. Everything I passed felt like it was crumbling, dying, patiently hoping that change would arrive like a sudden gust of wind. Part of me felt sorry for Cuba's plight. The other part, perhaps selfishly, didn't want anything to change. From Fidel's speech was revolution. Revolution, he roared over and over. And 10 years later, I can still feel those ahs echoing through the city. To this day, Fidel still lives, and change remains as close and as distant as ever. I guess it's the reason I returned, and I'm glad I did, because I would never have met Cesar. Cesar bursts into the gym with no name every day after school. It feels like just another abandoned slice of land in a forgotten city. But for Cesar, it's his playground, his refuge, his palace. Despite his tiny stature, Cesar is treated no differently. He's as mischievous and as playful as any 7-year-old, until it's time to fight.
Chances made that good life. Hey, hey, hey. Good life, I'm searching for that good life. Good life, I'm searching for that good life. No more stressing, taking chances, man, that good life.
Cesar's gloves are bigger than his head and look too heavy for his little arms to even lift, never mind punch. They spar without headgear. They also have no wrist straps, mouth guards, groin protection, timed rounds, and seemingly not too many rules. But they also fight without fear. The tepid nights deliver a flurry of activity. As it stands, no matter how good any of the talented fighters get here amongst the shadows, they'll never even glimpse at the bright lights of Las Vegas. Not only is overseas travel practically impossible for most Cubans, but Fidel's revolution also led to professional sports being outlawed in Cuba in 1962. If any of the boys at this gym do develop into genuine world-class fighters, the odds are they'll simply ignore the temptation of millions of dollars and pursue Olympic glory. The socialist system might be the very reason they will never be world famous, but it's also why there is so many schools just like this one flourishing all over the country, and why Cuban boxers are regarded as the world's best. It's said in Cuba that today's boxing champions are often tomorrow's trainers. Cesar's trainer is named Rafi, who's shockingly tough on the kids. Rafi says sport is critical in instilling discipline away from family and school, but I often have to remind myself that toughness probably never hurt any boxer in the long run. Besides, the boys keep returning day after day for more punishment. Many local men drop in on a nightly basis to lend a helping hand. None of them actually had their own kids at the gym. They simply seem to enjoy passing on the intricacies of the sweet science as if performing their duty to the community. Sometimes the grown-ups simply couldn't resist joining in the fun, but Rafi didn't seem to go easy on them either. Cesar will learn the basics night after night, week after week, year after year, until they're as ingrained as breathing. One day he'll pass on that knowledge to an eager kid just like him. It's the rhythm of life. Each new generation learns the choreography like the steps of a dance being passed down by tribal elders. Sometimes, though, Cuba's own fight seems never-ending. For a photographer like me, the texture, colour and characters of Havana provide endless inspiration. At times, it's impossible not to empathise with locals, but I felt compelled to document the country before, dare I say it, that change does actually finally appear, and all this unique imagery simply fades away, most likely forever. But each day I did turn up to visit Cesar and the boys, my camera naturally appeared less frequently. What began as a photo project somehow turned into me assisting, until finally I had morphed into Cesar's scene and began leading the way. I don't know what good I was actually doing. To this day, just about the only word I can understand in Spanish is revolution, and despite being half my size, most of the kids were already twice as knowledgeable about the sport I'd loved since I was their age. Still, for many years I had wondered why Cuba produced such a successful production line of boxers. For the better part, now I know. But what will always remain intangible to the equation is how the nation itself, with its socialism, restrictions, national pride, relative impoverishment and global isolation instead of globalization, manages to breed so many world-class fighters. Still, as I trained Cesar, I questioned whether I would actually let him compete in such a violent sport if he was my son. I also wondered if his talent is actually capped by a lack of Gatorade or Nikes or access to fancy facilities. Would Cesar have a better chance at Olympic glory if he had an iPhone and could actually get online to watch this very clip? Or is a lack of alternatives, distractions and equipment potentially a good thing for Cesar's development?
Que han aprendido a manejar el cañón y han aprendido a manejar las armas.
There was no Fidel tirades this time around, but after a decade between visits, I take solace in knowing that the haunting voice of the Cuban communist revolutionary will somehow accompany me always.
Sepan que no se van a enfrentar con señoritos, sepan que se van a enfrentar con hombres.
The truth is, nobody knows what Havana will look like in another 10 years, so for now, I simply cling to the hope that Cesar's palace is a way out, rather than a dead end. Before I said my goodbyes, I thought about delivering a stirring Fidel-like pep talk to Cuba's great 7-year-old hope. I wanted to tell Cesar to stick with it, do whatever it takes, treat boxing as a craft, fight your way out, never give up, settle for nothing but Olympic gold, become a national hero, my hero. But of course, I couldn't speak enough Spanish, and besides, I already got the feeling we were both exactly where we needed to be.